County Sheriff's Office, along with other agencies, carried out another operation targeting human traffickers and sex predators, which led to hundreds of arrests.
Hundreds of mugshots lined the walls at the Polk County Sheriff's Office Friday morning. Sheriff Grady Savage says 230 were human trafficking arrests, and 16 arrested are child sexual predators.
We arrested 16 travelers. That's right. They were sexual deviants.
What happens when America's toughest sheriff teams up with ICE to take down human traffickers? 255 arrests in 9 days. That's what happens. While families across Florida were going about their daily lives, Sheriff Grady Savage and federal agents were tracking the largest human trafficking network in Polk County history. Predators operating massage parlors, criminal aliens running prostitution rings, sex traffickers exploiting vulnerable women and children. But here's what nobody expected. This wasn't just a local operation. It was a coordinated pipeline stretching across multiple states, using legitimate businesses as fronts for the most evil crimes imaginable. The numbers don't lie. 255 dangerous criminals off Florida streets, 30 criminal aliens flagged for deportation, and 1 criminal empire completely eliminated. Stay until the end to discover exactly how Sheriff Grady Savage and ICE coordinated this massive takedown, and why this operation proves that when America's toughest sheriff works with federal agents, no trafficking network can survive on American soil. Central Florida's idyllic communities conceal a dark reality that most residents never see. Behind the facades of ordinary businesses, massage parlors, spas, and seemingly legitimate storefronts, a vast criminal network had established itself. What appeared to be normal commercial operations were actually fronts for one of the most sophisticated human trafficking operations Polk County has ever seen. The scope of this trafficking empire was unprecedented, with connections spanning across 12 different states and involving foreign nationals from 8 different countries. This wasn't just a local problem. It was a multi-state criminal enterprise that had meticulously constructed a pipeline to move victims and evade detection. Venezuela, Cuba, Honduras, Mexico, Haiti, Colombia, Guatemala, Brazil. The network had tentacles extending throughout Latin America, bringing in vulnerable individuals and forcing them into sexual servitude. What makes this trafficking operation especially insidious was its ability to hide in plain sight. These weren't shadowy operations in abandoned warehouses. They were businesses with licenses, taxpayer IDs, and all the trappings of legitimacy. They operated in strip malls, commercial districts, and areas where families shop. This camouflage allowed them to operate undetected for months, perhaps years. The criminal aliens at the center of this operation were particularly concerning. Over 36 individuals in the country illegally were part of this network, with 30 of them receiving ICE detainers, a clear indication of their significant involvement in the criminal enterprise. These weren't just participants, many were coordinators, profiting from human suffering while simultaneously violating immigration laws. The victims of this trafficking operation faced unimaginable trauma. Many were brought to the United States under false pretenses, promised legitimate jobs and opportunities for a better life. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a cycle of exploitation, unable to escape, often threatened with violence against themselves or their families back home. Language barriers, unfamiliarity with American law enforcement, and fear of deportation kept many victims silent, prolonging their suffering. The financial infrastructure supporting this criminal network was sophisticated. Investigators discovered elaborate money laundering schemes designed to conceal the illegal profits generated by trafficking activities. Cash from illegal sexual services was funneled through legitimate-appearing businesses, then distributed among the criminal network's leadership. This allowed the operation to persist without triggering financial red flags that might alert authorities. Perhaps most disturbing was how deeply these operations had infiltrated normal communities. In neighborhoods where children play and families build their lives, these criminal enterprises were operating virtually unnoticed. They used digital platforms to advertise services using coded language, established regular clientele, and became fixtures in the commercial landscape. Some had been operating in the same locations for years, building an appearance of legitimacy while engaging in the most heinous forms of exploitation. But what they didn't count on was Sheriff Grady Judd's determination to root out human trafficking in his jurisdiction, and his new partnership with federal immigration authorities that would dramatically expand his reach and capabilities. When Sheriff Grady Judd named the operation Fool Around and Find Out, it wasn't just clever wordplay. It was a declaration of intent. Those trafficking human beings in Polk County were about to discover the consequences of their actions through the most comprehensive joint law enforcement operation the region had ever seen. Planning for this operation began months in advance. Sheriff Judd and ICE officials coordinated extensively, sharing intelligence on suspected trafficking locations, known perpetrators, and potential victims. Digital forensics teams mapped online networks advertising illicit services. Undercover officers established relationships with potential traffickers, carefully building cases while navigating dangerous criminal environments. The operation required precise timing, flawless coordination, and absolute secrecy. The 9-day operation represented the culmination of this extensive preparation. Multiple agencies converged under Sheriff Judd's leadership, creating an unprecedented coalition of law enforcement power. Department of Homeland Security, ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations, ICE Homeland Security Investigations, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigations Division, Attorney General James Uthmire's Office of Statewide Prosecution, State Attorney Brian Haas of the 10th Judicial Circuit. The list of participating agencies was extensive. Adding to this federal firepower were local partners: Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Lake County Sheriff's Office, Pasco County Sheriff's Office, and police departments from Auburndale, Bartow, Claremont, Davenport, Haines City, Lake Alfred, Lake Wales, Winter Haven, and Zephyr Hills. The scale of interagency cooperation was unprecedented. ICE's involvement brought critical capabilities to the operation. Enforcement and removal operations officers interviewed over 50 foreign-born individuals encountered during the sting. This led to 30 ICE detainers being placed on individuals from Venezuela, Cuba, Honduras, Mexico, Haiti, Colombia, Guatemala, and Brazil, ensuring that they would face both criminal prosecution and potential deportation. ICE's authority to enforce immigration law in the interior of the United States proved invaluable. An ICE Homeland Security Investigations Tampa Task Force officer was embedded directly with Polk County's operation, providing specialized investigative support for both the human trafficking and child sexual predator components. This officer, along with a forensic interview specialist, conducted undercover communications with suspects attempting to engage in sexual acts with minors. The specialist conducted crucial interviews with arrested individuals to identify potential trafficking victims. The HSI officer alone was responsible for 6 of the 10 traveler arrests, individuals who physically went to locations expecting to sexually abuse children. The tactical execution of the operation was meticulously planned. Multiple rooms on a single floor of a Lakeland hotel were transformed into a complex surveillance network and processing center. Monitors displayed real-time feeds from across the operation. Teams were positioned to respond instantly to developing situations. The location was selected strategically to maximize operational security while minimizing risk to the public. What made this operation particularly effective was its multifaceted approach. While law enforcement focused on making arrests, non-governmental organizations specializing in human trafficking victim support were embedded within the operation. Representatives from One More Child and Heartland for Children were on site every night, offering immediate counseling and connections to services for identified victims. This victim-centered approach ensured that those being exploited received immediate support. The results spoke for themselves. Of the 255 individuals arrested, 141 were charged with soliciting prostitution, 93 with offering to commit prostitution, 10 with crimes related to assisting prostitution operations, and 11 with child sex-related crimes. 4 victims of human trafficking were identified and offered comprehensive services. 8 firearms were confiscated, underscoring the dangerous nature of these operations. But statistics alone don't capture the impact of removing 255 dangerous individuals from Florida communities. The suspects had a combined criminal history of 400 prior felonies and 519 misdemeanors, including charges as serious as premeditated murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, robbery, aggravated battery, and sexual assault. 1 individual alone had 2 prior murder charges and had recently been released from prison. Throughout the operation, Sheriff Judd's leadership style was on full display. Hands-on and fully engaged, he directed operations with his signature no-nonsense approach. As arrests mounted, it became clear that this wasn't just another law enforcement action. It was a defining moment in Polk County's fight against human trafficking. What sets Sheriff Grady Judd apart from other law enforcement leaders isn't just his colorful press conferences or memorable quotes. It's his strategic approach to fighting crime, particularly when it comes to human trafficking and exploitation. By partnering with ICE, Sheriff Judd leveraged a powerful combination of local intelligence and federal authority to achieve unprecedented results. Sheriff Judd's deep understanding of Polk County provided the operation with invaluable local intelligence. Having served the community for decades, Judd and his deputies know the territory intimately. Which areas are vulnerable to criminal activity, which businesses have suspicious patterns, and which online platforms are being used to facilitate illegal services. This granular knowledge of local conditions allowed the operation to identify targets with remarkable precision. The community trust factor cannot be overstated. Residents of Polk County trust Sheriff Judd and his department enough